this hashtag idea that I have, this idea is too nerdy. It's never going to work.
That's Chris Messina. He's the inventor of the hashtag. It's strange to think now, but there was a time before hashtags. Recently, I spoke to Chris about how he came up with the idea, and to my surprise, Twitter didn't exactly love it when he introduced it. In fact, they still don't. Here's why. In 2007, Twitter was a completely different platform than we know it today. It was actually a text messaging service.
If you followed someone on Twitter back then, that meant that all of their updates would be sent to your phone as a text message. So the more people you followed, the more your phone would blow up. And the more that people in your network were active on Twitter, the worse it got. And this was like really bad when you went to events like South by Southwest, because then everyone was there and everyone was like posting about the things that someone was saying on stage. You're like, this is not relevant to me. Like, this is so noisy.
Twitter had no way to filter conversations. Messina thought he had a fix.
There was a predecessor to Instagram called Flickr, where you could upload photos. If you wanted to be able to search photos, you had to actually put labels or tags on them. Can we do the same thing for these small SMS messages on Twitter? And because we'd been using IRC, which was the predecessor to Slack, they were using the pound symbol for channels. And so it seemed to me that we could just combine these ideas.
Chris didn't work at Twitter, but he blogged about his idea and created a few mock-ups of how hashtags could organize the platform. He even pitched it inside their office.
I lived in South Park in San Francisco, which was just up the street from Twitter's headquarters, which is like relatively modest at the time. They didn't have security or anything like that. So I like walked in the front door, and I think I encountered Biz Stone, one of the co-founders, and I was like, hey, Biz, like, I'm thinking about this problem with like groups on Twitter, and it would be really great if there was like a way to, use these tags, this hashtag idea that I have. But he was like, this idea is too nerdy. It's never gonna work.
So Twitter dismissed it, but because Chris had blogged about it, the idea was already out in the open. Then disaster struck, one that would change the internet forever.
And thanks for joining us. I'm Jim Patton.
And I'm Maria Arcega-Dunn. Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger has declared a state of emergency in Southern California. More than half a dozen wildfires driven by powerful Santa Ana winds are burning across the region at this hour, including 2 right here in San Diego County.
I wrote my proposal for the hashtag on my blog in August of 2007. And then in that fall, around October, there were a set of wildfires, and it was devastating. However, one of my friends was an early and active user of Twitter as well. And what he realized was that Twitter would be a great way to get information out to his community that were being affected by the fires, because the SMS network was still up, even if like the television and the internet was down. And so he used Twitter and its relay service to essentially post updates about the fires. And so I proposed that he use hashtag San Diego Fire instead. Once he started doing that, people could track that term, and they would get all the updates from anybody across the Twitter network that were using that hashtag.
For the first time ever, the hashtag was being used to turn all the scattered updates into a trackable stream of information.
And so that was very powerful because it gave people a sense for how this was useful outside of just like nerd events and tech events. This was actually something that citizen journalists who were reporting on their own experience could use to get information out using this new social media platform.
After the wildfires, the hashtag was fully adopted on Twitter, and it didn't take long before it also showed up in the real world.
The moment where I knew that, one, that the hashtag was going to be important and significant, but also that social media was growing in its cultural relevance and power, was when I was driving somewhere in like a rural part of California, and I saw a billboard for the Tea Party. On this billboard was a hashtag, and I'd never seen one like in the real world like this way before. And most of all, being used by a political like grassroots party that I had no affiliation with. And now this idea broke free, from that world and entered into the world of politics and started to shape the way that political advertisements were organizing themselves.
Other platforms started to pick up the hashtag. That's when Twitter realized they were sitting on potential gold.
In 2010, when Instagram launched, Twitter after having resisted it for so long, I think suddenly realized they could monetize the hashtag because people could run ads against it. And two, now one of their greatest competitive threats was adopting it. Twitter attempted to trademark the hashtag. Up until that point, I had not really wanted to come out publicly as the quote unquote like inventor of the hashtag, but suddenly this public resource needed to be protected. And so at that point, I sort of stepped forward and raised my hand and said, this is something that I contributed to the web, and therefore I have an obligation to protect it.
They were thinking about it, but they never actually pursued
They
it.
ended up like backing down. They still ended up like monetizing it. A big part of Twitter's ad business was certainly built around the hashtag, even though Twitter itself, Twitter Inc., didn't like the idea. The hashtag became kind of like a Trojan horse like feature that kind of like ended up part of the service, even though they hated it vehemently.
We are following breaking news. The deal is done. Twitter has been sold to Elon Musk.
In 2022, Elon Musk bought Twitter. He rebranded it to X, fired much of the staff, and even set his sights on the hashtag. For the second time in history, the hashtag was in danger of being killed by its own host platform.
The hashtag seems like the most, innocuous thing that like Elon Musk could care about, and yet he seems to really, really not like it. And the reason why, one, I don't take it too seriously, and two, it's kind of like, F off Elon, it's because Twitter, historically, always was against the hashtag. And the hashtag always existed in spite of the host platform. So I'm like, go ahead, bro, ban it, get rid of it if you want to. Try to change language. That's just not, I don't know that you can put that cat back in the bag. If he wants to ban his advertisers on his platform who he is in some kind of war with from using hashtags, frankly, that's amazing for me, because I would love for the hashtag to be returned to the people. It was not meant for a commercial purpose. It was like once Twitter started to try to monetize it, it was like when I had to step forward and be like, no, that's not what it's for. It's for people to communicate and find each other through the social web. That's the purpose.
Twitter's founders thought the hashtag was too nerdy, and Elon tried to get rid of it. But the hashtag is still here.